And so, Misty, what would or could a mixed verdict look like?
A mixed verdict. So there's a lot of different options here because obviously an acquittal, everybody agrees. A conviction, everybody agrees. A mixed verdict could be that the jurors find him guilty on some of the counts. We have 34 different counts of falsification of business records.
All of them felonies.
All of them felonies. And they could say, you know what? Michael Cohen generated those invoices. I don't think Donald Trump had anything to do with that, but he did sign those checks. So we're going to find him guilty on the checks, but not the others. And the others, that could be an acquittal or it could be a hung jury. So there's a lot of different ways that this could come out if there were to be a mixed verdict.
Samadayo, there is no way that the jury could say, well, not felonies, misdemeanors. That's not something that's in their purview.
It's not. So they're going to have to decide on those felonies. The misdemeanors are out. So that, you know, but that's why they're there. And to the extent that they can't decide, if they come out, they have a hung jury, what the judge is going to do is give them what's called an Allen charge, which basically he's going to send them back while telling them that there's not a better jury out there that can decide, that they are equipped, they've spent weeks in this, that they have the facts, the tools, the ability to make a decision here, and they should go back and try. And I bet here with this kind of case, he's going to probably do that multiple times, which in my experience, and with all our experience, that does work. Juries come back and they say they can't decide. They're sent back to dig deeper, to work out those differences, and they do it many, many times, come out with a unanimous decision.
And that's been your experience? Has it been all of your experience that actually happens and it works?
It can, because sometimes you have people on the fence. Sometimes you have people that aren't necessarily as staunch in their position of I'm going to convict or acquit, whichever way it's going to go. They're on the fence. They go back in. They're told to listen reasonably, not to put everything that they think aside or go against what they believe about reasonable doubt, but listen to the arguments of the majority and see with a reasonable perspective and see if that makes a difference. And sometimes it does work. Sometimes you've got people who have dug their heels in and they have just made a decision and they're not going to change.
And Duncan, is that something that in the jury room when they first arrive, you know, the 4 hours and 20 minutes that they were together yesterday, is that something that is normally early on determined or found out by the jury? In other words, you know, there's somebody that comes in and says, this person is guilty, I'm not going to change my mind, or this person is not guilty, I'm not going to change my mind. Is that normally how juries act and react when they first get together?
I mean, every jury is different.
Sure.
And so, you know, I expect that the first thing that happened was they got back there. These are 12 people who have spent a lot of time together, but really not talked about the facts of the case at all. They've been stuck there listening to testimony. To the extent that they've been together, they've been talking about things. They've been instructed not to talk about the case. So they're talking about the Yankees and the weather and all these things. And this is the first time they're back there. I expected the first thing that they did probably was go around the table and get each other's position. And so maybe there was one person or two people who were differed from, you know, the other. And I think that there's this thing about the Allen charge is not going to come for a while.
Really?
Because the judge wants to give them time to deliberate. But at some point, if this goes on too long and the jury comes back to them and sends a note to the judge and says, we cannot reach a verdict, we are hopelessly deadlocked, that's the point where you might see the judge talk to them, because it is such an extraordinary waste of judicial resources to have to try this case again. If that's what happens, if that's what the DA's office decides to do, the amount of time and effort that it is taken to try this case is extraordinary. So the judge is going to make it as difficult as possible for the jury just to decide, all right, well, today's Friday, we're done, we're not doing this. He's going to make them come back. He's not going to release them. He's going to say, go back there and hammer it out. Now, at some point, that may become hopeless, and the judge may give up too.
And that's decided by the judge, right? Unilaterally. He could just say, go back, go back, go back, an infinite number of times before he decides, all right, you guys aren't going to get this?
I think there comes a point of sort of common decency to let them go. And I don't know that it's been sort of tested how long a judge has the authority to keep somebody, you know, a group of 12 people locked up, hopelessly deadlocked. But he does a really broad discretion to send them back to the jury room and say, this is very important. I'm not releasing you that easily. Go back and figure it out.
There's no written limit in New York law, to your point. There's no written limit, but at some point, what you don't want to happen is that if you send the jurors back so many times and say you have to make a decision, you have to be unanimous, that goes too far. And that's why the Allen charge has very specific wording relating to the jurors have to go back and continue to confer, but by no means am I, judge, telling you you have to reach a verdict, because that could potentially be an appellate issue. So that's really where the line is, but the judge does have a great deal of discretion about when that point is reached.
So, Temadayo, now we're 4 hours and 41 minutes into this. What does 4 hours and 41 minutes with 4 questions having been asked tell you?
One, it's not that long. I mean, I know we are counting by the second, waiting for a verdict, but it's not that long. And I think what I'm seeing here is that you have a jury that's been very attentive, a jury that is committed. I mean, I think over the last 4 or 5 weeks, I don't know that we've had a single juror be late, right? They have been, and you haven't lost a single juror. I mean, sometimes you have trials that are 4 days long, and you have jurors that don't make it the 4 days because they decide on day 2, oh, their tooth hurts, and they just can't go on. They have to have surgery tomorrow. So this jury, to me, shows that they're incredibly committed. If I were a betting man, I think we have a verdict this week because, I mean, this jury is with this level of attention, I don't know that you're going to have
this week being tomorrow,
this
right?
week by end of day tomorrow. I mean, if I really want to be betting on live television, maybe I'll say by end of day today. Even I think it's possible because, and again, these are not. I want to put this in a bracket. We don't have a way to know this, right? We don't know what's going back there. And when you talk to juries after trials, sometimes the things you swore, like, oh, jury number 9, that guy, oh, he gets me, or this juror hates me, or this juror, and you find out that, no, the person that you never saw would be your holdout is the one who had an issue, or as Misty and I were talking about, sometimes you have a hung jury and they come back and explain why they voted on certain counts, not others, and it makes 0 sense. You're thinking, no, it's like that's everything about the facts said it had to be one or the other. And they go, oh, no, like the first 3 counts, we understood those, but on these 2, we couldn't agree. And you think, that's literally logical, but that is their job. That's their province, and it's not our job to question them. And so we'll see what they come out with.
What a fascinating process, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing because not only in this case where you have the fate of and liberty of a president of the United States being judged by 12 ordinary people, right? A salesman and a physical therapist and an engineer and lawyers. But in every case, I know the world is paying attention for the first time to this specific case, to this courthouse, to the rules in New York. And, there's been commentary on the right and left about what the rules are, and everyone's paying attention to it. But it's extraordinary in every case because 12 ordinary people get to judge the fate of a person and come together, people with no experience in criminal justice, who really are there to judge the facts. They're not there to understand the law. They're just there to say, here's what happened. And so it's an extraordinary moment. Win or lose, acquit or convict. It's an extraordinary moment in history, and it's a great sort of testament to our democracy and what's happening in the courthouse here and all over the country every day of the week.
Yeah, I'm still in awe of the system. I really am, and to think that the importance of the rule of law for a healthy democracy, but also the way that this country values individual people that aren't experts and that aren't judges and lawyers, and trial by jury of your peers is such a, I mean, I know it exists in other countries, but not to this level. And just sit back and to think, these are 12 people who don't know each other. Yeah. And aren't part of the process of the rule of law, and yet they are in very, very real ways the definition of the rule of law.
Absolutely. They're the arbiters of the facts. They're the ones that weigh the credibility of the witnesses, and they ultimately make the determination. And our system in this democracy and preservation of constitutional rights, you don't have one person deciding your fate. You have a group of 12, and it's an amazing thing.
Misty Marris, Temadayo Aganga-Williams, and Duncan Levin, thank you so very much.